How do you find the will to fight back against a world that wants to keep you sedated, average, and stuck in place? Join us for the tools and strategies you need to create a life of abundance, discipline, and high achievement. This is the Tactical Empire with Jeff Smith.
Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Tactical Empire. Today I'm joined by none other than Jefferson Rogers, the CEO and founder of JKR Windows and the newest published author of the book All In. Welcome, Jefferson. How are you today, man?
Hey, thanks, Jeff. Doing great, brother. How are you?
Fantastic, fantastic. I appreciate your time coming on today. Tell me a little bit about this book you just dropped on Halloween.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it. Thanks again for having me on. And yeah, excited to launch my book finally after working on it for the last 2.5 years. It's called All In, Get Unstuck, Accelerate, and Go Further, Faster.
I love it.
And it's, a little bit about my journey and the philosophy behind getting off the couch and starting to do something with my life, changing my way of thinking and my belief systems, and going from being broke and addicted and having all kinds of baggage to starting to really use that stuff for fuel and build something special for myself. It started out just in sales, just ramping up my activity and doing training, making more money than I ever made in sales. And then over the past 6 years, developing myself as a leader and building a team. And now I've got a business that's produced over $50 million in revenue. And we're on track to do close to 25 million this year.
That's amazing, man. That is amazing. There's definitely some synergies here between what I preach and teach and do on a regular basis and kind of like what the content that you're putting together in your book. Tell me, how long have you been on this journey?
Started back in 2017. I've been on the journey a long time.
Yeah.
My mom listened to Tony Robbins and Esther Hicks when I was a kid. So I'd been kind of exposed to personal development and affirmations and manifestations and all of these buzzwords and things that I had started to get exposed to. And really started to turn it on in 2017 after joining a mentor program and getting my habits and discipline dialed in, and got sober in 2018, started a business in that same year. And it just, been focused on pointing all of my addictive tendencies into a better direction over the last couple of years.
Yeah. It's funny how that works. I know a lot of guys have that same kind of addictive personality, and it can be, you can wield that sword for good or for evil, I feel like, in a lot of settings. And so I share that sentiment for sure. Was your first venture into entrepreneurship with the Windows company, JKR?
You know what? Actually, back in probably 2010, I had purchased a pressure washer from my uncle, and I was just like a one-man show. So it wasn't all that lucrative, but that was really my first go at entrepreneurship, was doing pressure washing. I also, in that same business, I do pressure washing in the evenings, and I had a 24-hour roadside assistance that I did for U-Haul as well. So I had a service truck, and I was a mechanic.
Really?
Yeah.
So you came like up as a solopreneur then, effectively, and then what led you to kind of jump into the window game in that industry?
You know what? I had some friends that were seeing some success in that industry, and they were living a kind of lifestyle that I wanted at that point. And they were doing a whole lot of partying and drinking and happy hour and golf. And that was, not necessarily something that appeals to me much anymore, but it did then. And all I was doing was just working my eyeballs out and not spending a whole lot of time with my family and not making a whole lot of money. So I jumped into doing sales, and I wasn't very good at it, especially after being a pothead and spending a whole lot of time secluded and just in my own head for a lot of years. But I knew that after watching these guys do it, that they were nothing special and I could do it as well. And it was, started out just the solo thing and doing it myself, setting and closing appointments on my own. But the one thing that really appealed to me was the leadership side of things and developing people and being able to build a team. And I struggled a lot with leadership. And it's been one of my big focuses over the past 6 years is develop myself there and to build a team. And now I've got a company with over 100 people and still got a long ways to go, but I've made a lot of progress.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by leadership. I think that it's definitely your ceiling in life with regards to, like, if you're not developing your leadership qualities, I think that you will max out your potential.
Yeah.
In any aspect. I come from a special operations background, so like leadership to me is a fascinating thing to observe and kind of take in the business world and in the civilian world, if you will. What do you think were some of your limitations when you started this? Like, so 6 years ago, you said you were a bad leader. Essentially, I put words in your mouth. Sorry.
No, that's absolute truth.
I think we've all had our moments, certainly. All right. So Jefferson, tell me, looking back, like if 2024 Jefferson, looking back on the 2017 Jefferson as a leader, tell me some of those like learning curves that you had and mistakes and maybe mulligans that you took during that period of time.
Yeah, sure had a lot of those. One of the important things to understand in leadership, and that I try and emphasize in my book, is that there's going to be a lot of practice that you got to get in on people, and sometimes it ain't going to go that smooth, and sometimes you're going to burn some bridges, you're going to blow some people out of the water. And one of the inspirations for the book was because I was so lacking in the area of leadership, and it was such a painful thing to me, because I don't necessarily care what people think about me, but I definitely care how I make people feel. And early on in the process, when I was getting started in leadership, I was starting to train and develop people in sales. And because of the way that I was raised by a hard-nosed, contractor, firefighter father, and the way that he was raised, I was the oldest of 4 boys, and man, we didn't have like this emotional connection and this empathy and an ability to talk things out in a way where we were going to be able to inspire each other. My dad inspired me by just being a badass, and I wanted to live up to his expectations. And he was, he was respected and he was well known as somebody that was hardworking and disciplined and one of the baddest firefighters and contractors around. So I took what I had, and as I started in leadership and just paid attention to the way that I made people feel, the same way that my dad made me feel, that worked with me because I was his son and I loved him, doesn't work on other people, turns out. So I had to learn that the hard way. But I was inspired to be able to make an impact on people's lives. And I had some of these little things happen throughout my early sales career that, I was able to make an impact on people's lives. And I was able to show them something early on in their career that they didn't necessarily see in themselves. And they doubted and they almost left, and they questioned whether this was the right move. And because of the challenges that I had gone through, I was able to share with them that this is possible and you are capable of doing more. And this is you're just one step away to making a breakthrough. And it's cool to be able to put that into perspective, because if you haven't gone through the challenges, it's hard for you to convey that kind of message. And I try and put that into perspective for people, because as they're going through the toughest challenges in their life, you don't see it, because it just seems like it's difficult and it's challenging. You're thinking about quitting. But when you can show people that this is legitimately qualifying you to help people in such a different way because of the challenges that you've overcome and the new perspective that you're going to be able to help people with, that you're going to be able to make an impact in a completely different way. If you were to just take the easy route, you never overcome any challenges, you're not speaking from a place of experience.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tremendous way to look at it. I think that you mentioned earlier that we're suffering from a lack of leadership in the entire country, and I definitely agree. I think that it starts internally, leading yourself well. I think that you're empowering people to become leaders in their own right with what you're doing and the book you're putting out, obviously, and I think that's so important because I feel like most people have been so beaten down by like all the negativity in the world that they're scared to step out and kind of like take their destiny by the reins and kind of believe that they are capable of more, right? Because I
Absolutely.
think that we get so caught up in the monotony of like believing what we see in front of us is like what's possible. So if you're surrounded by, I mean, the 5 people or whatever, but like most people are surrounded by 5 people doing exactly the same shit they're doing. And so like it's the corporate job, the cubicle or whatever, straight to happy hour at 3:00, and the monotony of doing that over and over and over again, forever. But just like crabs in a bucket, those people like they stay at the same level forever. So people that are preaching and teaching and encouraging people to kind of believe more that there's more out there for themselves, like that's super important because I think they have a tendency to not believe that they can do something different or that someone else is very special or blessed with an innate talent that they may not possess. But as you step through the levels of different things with regards to knowledge, leadership, finances, things like that, you just realize everybody is exactly the same. And and they're just normal people that took a different level of action and applied a level of like at least self-belief for a period of time that they were willing to put themselves out there regardless of the feedback or regardless of the embarrassment or humiliation or whatever may come your way in the early stages, right?
It is. Yep. And if, some people, they need a little bit of exposure to develop that kind of thinking also, because I thought the same way at one point in my life. I remember driving my bike around these neighborhoods when I was a kid, and there were the big houses and they were, well put together and they drove the nice cars. And I didn't come from an upbringing like that, but I wanted it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was this battle and this, this trying to understand where it comes from and what makes these people qualified. And is it something that I'm capable of doing, or is it something that they were born into? And that change of perspective over time, as you start to get around these people, that they're nothing special.
Yeah.
Like they're just people. The only thing that separates you from them is just the time and experience that they have doing whatever they did to be able to earn that money, and the belief that they had in themselves that possibly came from a book or a mentor or a coach that helped them get to that level of belief that they could go after a higher level of income and be able to make a bigger impact and bring more value. And that's the inspiration that I got from a mentor that I was hearing this story, and he came from a similar place and he dealt with addiction, and he came from a backwoods place in Georgia or Louisiana, and he's just a regular freaking guy.
Yeah.
But he decided to do something different. He got inspired, and now he wants to help people. And that's, it's the first thing in my book is that at the right place in my life, at the right time, there was a person that had a message for me that inspired me to believe that things were different. And I want to be that same inspiration for people. That I'm nothing special either. I was just a freaking guy that used to ride my bike around and look at these big houses and want something more for myself. And little by little, I started to believe more, and I got exposed to more, and I had a mentor, and I had somebody instill some belief in me that, listen, it is possible for you too. And that those people out there are nothing different. You just got to start believing that more is possible. And then you got to have the action and the activity to go out and back it up.
Yeah, it's definitely compounding interest of activity over time and different choices than you're currently making, right? And then the interesting thing that you had said about the mentor, I firmly believe that there's things happening on a daily basis to us that either you're aware. So you had a heightened level of awareness for some reason that when that person came into your life and believed in you, you received that and then put it to action, right? I think what we're seeing more than anything, whether it's because of social media or because of the technology that we're dealing with, I think people are walking around more unaware than ever before. So like, because I am a huge believer in like source energy, God, whatever you want to call it, like
Right.
Whatever you believe in, I believe that there's a higher power. There's energy at work all the time, right? And I think that these things happen and they come into our life constantly. And I think people miss them constantly because they are not observing them with a level of awareness to say, what is this opportunity telling me? Why is this happening to me? And or is this a message that I should be doing something else or pivoting, turning right
Yeah, I
instead of
love that.
turning left? You know what I
love
mean?
that. It is. And you know what I realized, because I mean, I was 33 when I finally started paying attention to that kind of stuff. So it wasn't like a magical moment that happened. It was a lifetime of getting exposed to different things and seeds that were planted and people that cared about me and were little by little helping me believe more in myself, until it came to a point where I was now actively seeking something different. Because we do, you mentioned it earlier, that most of the time we just go through the motions and we're around these people that help us feel comfortable about our situation. And so we just follow the same patterns and we're comfortable and we're in our comfort zone and we're not actively seeking a new level. And until I wasn't going to put myself through any more uncertainty or uncomfortable circumstances. And now all of a sudden, there was no longer going to be room in my life for these other habits, the drinking, the smoking pot, the things that were keeping me from reaching my potential. I was going to do everything in my power. And I wasn't very tactful about it. I was kind of extreme and I was abrasive. And all of a sudden I just wanted to flip a switch. And I was actively seeking a different environment to be in, different people to be around, new levels for myself. I was getting rid of all the negativity. And if somebody listening to this is wondering how it's going to happen for them, it's not going to happen magically. You have to actively be seeking something different than what you've been doing for anything to be able to change. And then you start recognizing those opportunities. Like, holy shit, these new people are coming into my life, and I would have normally been kind of intimidated by them. And they help you like look yourself in the mirror and realize that you're not doing as much as you could. But now I'm willing to look at that and like swallow it and be like, fuck, I'm gonna have to do something different if I want something different. And that's what a lot of people struggle with, is just the uncertainty of what that's going to look like, how it's going to feel. Am I ready? Am I ready to look at myself in the mirror and really like swallow that pill?
Yeah. It takes a lot of introspection. I refer to that as like friction, right? Like when you're raising your level of awareness, you need to notice more, right? You need to notice what's causing you emotions, what's causing you stress, anxiety, uneasiness, or like it's not necessarily a physical feel. It's more of an emotional feel. And like, you have to analyze those things that are causing friction, or like, okay, so I don't like being around that person because they pressure me to do X, Y, and Z each time they're around. They don't bring value to my life, right? Like, are they adding value or are they subtracting, right? And so one of the things we talk about in the military all the time is like, you always want to make yourself an asset as opposed to a liability. You never want to be a liability. And if you look through the lens of that in the civilian world, like, how can you be an asset in day-to-day life, right? And it's being more formidable. It's being a good listener. It's being like a good neighbor. It's helping people out when they need it. And being kind of a sounding board for people. But like what you're doing is that like you're empowering other people to step into their leadership qualities. Okay. And what that does is like that is the epitome of leadership, because leadership is leading yourself well, but also leading others well into their potential. And then their potential breeds more leaders. And then the ripple effect is exponential. It doesn't stop ever. It's infinite.
It is, man. That's one of the cool realizations about leadership and shifting your focus from addictive, destructive behaviors to making a true impact is that the ripple effect on your actions from just a smile in passing, or that conversation that inspires somebody to do something different, or over a long period of time inspiring and influencing somebody in their leadership to go start making a bigger impact. Everything you're doing is making an impact.
Yeah.
And the more consistent you are over a long period of time, the bigger that ripple effect, the farther out that it goes, the farther the reach. And that's what fires me up about being a leader and writing a book and running a company and doing coaching with my people is, man, I'm changing people's lives. And it may just be small, but I just keep getting better and having more influence and being able to make a bigger impact. And I want to grow other leaders. So it's, by the time I'm dead and gone, the impact is just, just like you said, it just never stops and never ends. Your influence just continues on forever.
Right. Right. I love it, man. I love it. You're doing great things.
Appreciate that, bro. I love what I do. It's JKR Windows started out as just a way for me to make some more money and to do it a little bit better than the other companies did it. And now it's turned into something where we sell windows, but man, we are first and foremost a people development company. And it doesn't happen by accident. You got to be intentional. You got to take it seriously. You got to have something for people to get excited about and to be a part of and to be proud of. And we'll do close to 25 million in sales this year. And it's only been a little over 5 years.
Right. Yeah. That's tremendous growth. What's next for you? What are you looking forward to most about next year, 2024?
So, man, we've got with every level in business, there's new challenges. There's things that I was dealing with in the first year and the second year that, they were all new and they were all challenging, but they're so different than the things that happened in the third and the fourth year. If you're continuing to focus on growth and developing yourself and improving your processes. And now in our sixth year, we're working on digital marketing and hiring people virtually and growing our sales team. And we've got this great big goal of doing $200 million in one calendar year. And there's just new challenges that pop up all the time that, they're unexpected and they're unknown. And there's this focus on growth that brings about new challenges that only special type of leadership and entrepreneurship is capable of doing those types of things.
Man, that's tremendous. I love the goals, because shit, you're talking about 8-9xing what you're doing. And that's a different way to think. When you can stretch your head out there and wrap your head around like laying down goals like that, that's tremendous. So
it is, it's something I learned from Grant Cardone. One of the first books I read was the 10X rule. And it was kind of a book that changed my life. It was recommended by my uncle and I listened to it on Audible. And one of the things that stuck out to me was I'd always heard about this concept of writing your goals. but I never really did it. I'd do it like once a year, like most people do on New Year's Eve, and I'd have a couple of goals for the year. I'd forget about them in a couple of weeks. But one of the things that stuck out to me, that's a challenge for some people, but for me, it's over time, it's evolved, is you make these big crazy ass goals,
Mhm.
and then you also put the action steps necessary for you to reach those goals. Like, what am I going to have to do? Reverse engineer it
Yep.
on a daily basis, monthly, quarterly, to be able to hit a goal that big. And even if you come up halfway short, like even if I come up halfway short on a $200 million goal, holy shit, I got a $100 million business.
Yep.
And I still am tough on myself because that is the goal. And I'm holding myself accountable to it. And I'm doing everything necessary to be able to hit 200 million. But I'm not getting down on myself if I don't do 200 million.
Yeah.
I'm going to be critical and I'm going to hold myself accountable. But the opposite is what most people do. And they make these small goals and then they come up halfway short on a small goal and they don't get shit done.
Yeah.
And that's what I used to do. Your goals last a week and they were small anyways. So it's like, oh, well, nobody even knew that I made that goal anyways. So inspiring people in a different way to think about goals. And it's okay if you come up halfway short on a goal, because you still had 5 times more productivity than you normally would have if you made a regular size goal.
Yeah. Yeah. I think people oftentimes set their goals way too small because if you're setting goals appropriately, it's going to require a whole new version of you to achieve that. And I think people discount that. And that's why a lot of people set mediocre goals, because they're not that challenging, right?
Yeah.
Like if you set 10x goals or something like that, like it's going to necessitate a whole different version of you, whole different behaviors, whole different wake up
Absolutely.
time, whole different,
Absolutely.
your vices are going to have to go by the wayside. Like all that shit, you just don't have time for. Like when I talk about friction, like anything causing friction will be an impediment to you reaching 10x goals. And so like you have to optimize every facet of your life in order to have that level of success that you're looking for. But that's incredibly uncomfortable because who will like you? Who will accept you?
Yeah.
What's your life look like when you have to live a whole different life? Do you have friends? It's not the same friends. Maybe it's one of them, but like, so there's a lot of discomfort that comes with trying to stretch like that.
There certainly is, man. And it sounds like you've gotten to experience it a little bit for yourself, because it's tough. Like there is a price that you're going to have to pay. Those 5 people that you spend the most time with now are a reflection of your future. And there's a period of time where I had to get rid of all of the people in my life,
Yeah.
including like some of the people that I love and care about the most. And as I'm sharing my story and I'm talking through the process and I'm sharing on social media and I'm being open about the things that I'm doing, those people aren't going to know what to think about you, because they all think you're talking about them. When I'm thinking about getting rid of all this negativity out of my life and all these negative people and all the negative TV shows and the music, everybody takes it personally. My mom, my dad, my cousins, my brothers, everybody that I loved the most wasn't quite sure what to think about me. I thought I was an asshole.
Yeah.
But there was a period of time where I couldn't make exceptions anymore. And you just got to be okay that, people aren't going to know what to think about you. There's going to be a price. But if you want things to change, those same people aren't going to be around. And some of them aren't going to be around for good reason, and they won't be around even after you come back into a place where you're trying to put things back together. But now, it's almost like they're not sure what to think. And now I'm having conversations trying to help people understand what I had to go through and the price that I had to pay to be able to change my life. And that, I still love my family and I want them in my life. And it's like, I don't want to be a threat to them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, it's just a constant challenge every step of the way, that you've got to come to terms with the work that's going to be involved, the challenges, the uncertainty, and you can go at it and just be quiet and put your head down. Or I shared my story along the way, and I burned some bridges and I hurt some feelings, but it was how I had to process it.
Right.
And it was one of the prices I had to pay to be able to reach a new level for myself.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not that you have any animosity against those people. You wish them the best, and you hope that they grow. And like sometimes those people re-enter your life in the future because they've been on a journey as well. It's just the cadence at which they're moving is different than yours. And
Yeah.
but like you can realign with those people in the future as well. And I think it's just a common misunderstanding, but anyone that's aspired at that level has a lot of empathy, I think, for other people, because um, I mean, you understand the sacrifice you have to make, but you also understand that everybody's out here probably in 99.9% of the cases just doing the best they can, right, with their
Absolutely.
current circumstance. And I think having gone through like a lot of shit myself, it allows me to have a lot of empathy and understanding for other people. Just because like the way I processed all of my different traumas and everything else, they took they were on my own timeline, right? And so like who am I to judge other people that are clearly on their own timeline with regards to processing? All I can do is wish them the best and hope that the journey that they're on brings them exactly what they're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. There was some hard lessons I had to learn along the way about trying to force feed people some of the same stuff that I was going through. And people will do it on their own time.
Yeah.
And my little brothers are a great example. You know, they're on their own journey. They're doing it on their own time, and force feeding it was just doing the exact opposite of what I was trying to do. So over time, you just realize that you got to be on your journey and help where you can. And when people need some advice, you can share with them with more and more understanding and wisdom from a place where it's actually tactful advice, and it's not force feeding anybody anything. It's actually able to make an impact. And then, the biggest thing is just being an example, doing your thing, being an example, constantly moving forward, making progress, treating people good. And it feels good to be able to make an impact without, there is no force feeding anybody anything. You got to let them have their own journey. You got to allow them their own journey.
Yeah. Yeah. I think people discount how much influence they have uh, tremendously, because there's people watching you, all of us. And so I mean, I talk a lot about personal branding and things like that to my clients and other people, but like, I think people truly discount the level of influence that they have in their lives, because they think they're nobody special or whatever. Which I mean,
Yeah.
I would say the same thing about myself, but like ultimately, I do know that people are watching me. Like if nothing else, my 4 kids, and so I have an obligation to behave in a certain way and hold a certain standard and uphold my level of integrity, just because if no one's watching, they're watching. And so, but I also think that people downplay the level of influence they have within, like, even their circle of influence, right? Like, if you simply take that step to start doing positive things, the net is going to be positive at the end of the day. So like you may have naysayers that shit on you, or like, oh, who do you think? I mean, this happens all the time with overweight people, like overweight people that run around together, and like you start losing weight, you start making positive changes for yourself. And then like the crabs in the bucket phenomenon kicks in, and they're like, oh, you don't want to go eat with us or drink 7,000 calories tonight. Like, why not? And, but what they're doing is that they're positively influencing someone. There's no question with that journey. And so I think that people don't understand the impact that they have. And I think that when you talk about a lack of leadership in the country, I think people have abdicated their responsibility to be the example, to be that example, and understand the level of obligation that they have. Because even if they impact one single person, if they're not upholding the standard and being the example, they've now let that person down, that one person. And now there's a ripple effect to that extent in a negative direction.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the great responsibilities of being a father, of being a leader, is, man, people are watching you, and they're watching you and waiting for these examples of what's acceptable for them. Because I've done it myself.
Mhm.
Like, I've had mentors and coaches and bosses and even aunts and uncles and my mom and dad. Like, we're constantly watching these people in our lives make these choices and sometimes mistakes that then we're processing for ourselves. Like, it helps us understand what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, and we're processing our own core values. And as a leader and a father, everything from health to the way that I talk to people, the way that I treat people, the way that I smile and talk, everything, you are leaving an impact and an example, and you're either leaving them with an example of what's acceptable, that's positive or negative. And man, I've had those examples in my life of people that didn't do it all that well, that helped me understand the ways that I didn't want to do it and the ways that I did want to do it. And I only want to be an example of people and teach people to be that example in other people's lives of the way you do it, and the integrity, and the way that you treat people, the honesty, and the impact that you can truly make as a leader, and even somebody who's just aspiring to be a leader. Because no matter what, you're making an impact and people are watching.
I think the number one thing that you can do, for me personally, the number one thing that I probably changed my life and my leadership, it was just being acutely aware of the words that I say, and always keeping my word, which has been incredibly challenging with as a father. And so, like, I'm very aware of anything I say, though, that I follow through and I keep my word. So whatever I say, I do, which has caused me to be very quiet most of the time,
Yeah,
because it's a hard standard to hold, to realize that if you open your mouth and you say you're going to do something, and then you must 100% follow through. And so, like, if you apply that to every area of your life, like if you say you're going to do something, because that's where we erode our confidence in ourselves, is because we lie to ourselves more than anything. Right. So, like, I'm going to get up at
absolutely.
4 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to go work out. I'm going to do this. And then we put it off because it's too cold. It's too dark. It's too whatever. And
Yep.
like, that erosion of confidence starts between our ears. And so if you can start keeping those promises to yourself 100% of the time, and then allow that to manifest itself in your life, it changes how you show up and how you behave in your relationships, all of them, whether it's with your team, your spouse, your kids, all of them.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? How you've noticed the confidence that it creates,
Mm-hmm.
all the way to the point where it's like you're acutely aware of making a commitment or not making a commitment because of how it's going to be perceived by other people.
Yeah.
And it's a huge responsibility, especially when you're raising kids. Like, these are kids that are watching your every move, and their future behavior is determined by what they're watching going on around them. That's a huge responsibility.
Well, I know the lessons are taking, because my kids hold me responsible for what I say. I mean, I had a simple example I can tell you. This weekend, I said I was going to get ice cream sandwiches for people, and then I, like, blew it off. The last 3 hours of the day got away from me in the evening, and I had to go to the fucking grocery store at 8:15 at night to get ice cream sandwiches because I said I was going to do it. And they were like, "Well, does your word mean nothing?" And I'm like, "Well, if you're going to throw that in my face, you better live that shit for the next 100 years." And so I feel like we're doing all right, but, like, just throwing down the gauntlet and saying, this is the standard I hold myself to, you guys can hold me to it, is very helpful as a father for me personally.
It is. And I think it's the foundation also for achievement, because, like you said, it comes down to, even on the smallest level, when nobody even knows about it, are you keeping those little promises? Are you a man of your word or a woman of your word? Are you doing what you say you're going to do, even when nobody knows?
Mm-hmm.
And that helps you build confidence. It helps you build momentum. And it has to start somewhere. Like, you start out saying you're going to wake up early, you're going to start going to the gym, you're going to eat better, you're going to stop treating people like that, and then you don't. And it's okay. Like, not everybody's just going to be able to flip the switch. I certainly wasn't able to just flip a switch, but I was able, because I am a person of high integrity and I believe myself to be somebody who's going to do what they say they're going to do. I'm not going to do it 100% of the time, but man, as I started getting that momentum and doing the things I said I was going to do, even when nobody was watching or nobody knew about it, it helped me with this level of confidence, and it helped me start building momentum. And I started getting up a little bit earlier. I started accomplishing more with my day. And as you start to build that momentum, you accomplish a little bit more each day than you did before, because you were sleeping in and you weren't being productive. Now you can incorporate new habits into your life, and now it's building momentum, and you're making more progress, and you're becoming more disciplined. And this stuff doesn't happen by magic. Like, you're not going to just be able to flip a switch like the internet wants you to be able to believe. Like, you're going to have some easy fucking button, and all of a sudden you'll be able to make $1 million. Yeah. And you're going to be an incredible leader, and you're going to be able to make an impact on people's lives. You got to put in the work. You got to start with those little promises and be okay with, you messed up once, for heaven's sakes. Everybody does it. Don't let it break your streak. One day doesn't have to turn into 2, doesn't have to turn into a week. You just keep plugging along, keep making progress, adding a little bit more. And I mean, I'm telling you, 6 years ago, I was a shit show. I had almost thrown away my marriage. I was making 75 grand a year and spending 90. And I was a complete mess.
Yeah.
But I was not going to accept it anymore. And I want to inspire people to believe that things are different. Things can be different for you, and you're capable of doing more. At the very top right here, it says, you are meant to do great things. And you just gotta believe it, and then start acting like it.
I love that, man. I love that. Guys, go buy Jefferson's book, Jefferson Rogers, All In. Okay. Go buy that book. Check it out. Man, you're an inspiration, though. I mean, like, what you've said here is that in 5-6 short years, you've built an 8-figure company from a 5-figure salary job, and that's quite a hockey stick trajectory, right?
It can happen, man. It can happen. I'm really, I believe that I am something special, just because that's what you got to tell yourself. But I'm just a regular old guy from a blue collar family. My mom worked at financial institutions, and she was a receptionist, and my dad was a firefighter and a contractor. And I learned good morals and ethics and values from my parents, incredible people. I just wanted something different. And I believed in myself, and I just took advantage of the resources around me that aren't going to happen for you. You got to go find them. You got to actively be seeking something different, and big things are possible for you as well.
I love it. I love it. Hey, Jefferson, where can they find you?
At Jefferson K Rogers. My website is jeffersonkrogers.com. You can find the book on Amazon. I'm just getting wrapped up with the Audible version, and I got the freaking radio voice, dude. This book is turning out so good on Audible. It's going to be awesome. It's a good book just by itself, but on Audible, if you want me to read it to you, it's even that much better.
Oh, I definitely am going to look for the Audible version. So keep me posted on when that comes out, man.
I will, Jeff. I appreciate you having me on, brother.
Thanks for coming on, Jefferson. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for listening to the show. Make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and share with a friend. We'll see you on the next episode of the Tactical Empire.